Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Rabbit Trail Podcast. This is the podcast where we chase the truth wherever it runs. And right now it's running to episode number 177.
177.
Hey, that's like 2 sevens in a row. Anyway, so we're just excited that you guys are joining with us on this kind of fun, zany adventure as we kind of pick up off of themes that we've started on our Sunday morning church service and the sermon there. My name is Greg Harris. I'm the senior pastor at the sponsoring church, Olive Branch Community Church. And we've been talking a little bit about heaven, a little bit about hell. We'll talk a little bit more about that today in particular. But before we get any further, why don't you guys say hi and let them know what's up.
Hello.
Hello.
And if somebody has a question.
If you have a question, send them into rabbittrail@obcc.church.
All right.
We would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
in fact, there's something like new on, there's a couple of new things.
So shout out to Yvette. She added a QR code to the church's notes. So if you're in the service, you should be able to use the QR code to send in questions.
So that's actually what somebody did this week. They were in the message, and they actually pulled the QR code up, and they went and sent in their question right in the middle of the message.
Yeah.
I was really irritated.
Yeah. I was going to say,
Just
one of the
kidding.
things is it distracts you. So you can just, enjoy emailing us, and not listening to Greg babble on. So that's always nice. And my name is Brent Branchard. I'm the Connections pastor here. And after that last comment, probably not very long, but I am the Connections pastor. And if you're listening to it or watching it on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe, you like, give us a thumbs up to whatever platform you're listening to so that it will generate more alerts for you and everything else. So that would be great to help us become broader.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what you guys been up to this week? Any?
Okay, for me, I will be going on vacation this week. I'm leaving in 2 days. Yeah. We're going to Cabo. Every other year. We go down there and stay, and so I've been packing and doing all my laundry, and Nancy has been not doing her packing yet. She always waits till 5 o'clock in the morning the day we're leaving.
No, that's fun.
Yeah.
I like to wait till the last.
Did she ever forget anything?
Not really.
That's pretty good.
Not
How
really.
do you pack so early? I don't understand people that pack early for trips.
Okay, for
Because
one,
half of the things that you need to, you're going to take, you use.
You need some precious teeth, though.
I will say this. You can pack a lot earlier. Like right now, we're going to Cabo. It's warm in Cabo. So you got your shirts and your bathing suits and your T-shirts. So I could pack way in advance, right? It's when you're kind of going to the same climate that it gets a little harder to pack too early.
Yeah.
But I like to be done and relaxed. And
So do you have like a toothbrush for travel and a toothbrush for at home?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Which is always really nice because then when you travel, like 4 months after your last travel and you've got all the bacteria growing on your toothbrush
From another
been from the
location.
other trip. Yeah. It's always nice, to
Yeah.
rub that all over your teeth the first.
This
the
was
first trip.
from another climate where
Yeah.
you can get dysentery.
Yes, but Nancy's been preparing emotionally because she loves Cabo. She loves to be able to speak Spanish. She loves being in the infinity pool, watching the whales in the ocean, jumping and calving and everything else.
Wait, do they really?
Oh yeah, I mean our resort's right there on the
I feel like I
ocean.
missed out. I didn't
know.
see
Wow.
that.
They're just all over the place out there.
Okay.
So she loves it. That's her favorite thing
That's
to
pretty
do.
cool.
And then we just walk around town, eat tacos all week long. You never get tired of tacos. But the last trip we went on, we were walking down the street because they always have like street fairs, and there was a magician doing all these magic tricks. And so he just walked up to us, and he said, "Uno, dos," and then disappeared without a trace.
Ooh. How did you
I
manage to
snuck it in.
squeeze that in?
All right.
All right. Well,
What have you been doing this
I
week? I love that you laugh.
this is an opposite in our relationship. I find that miserable. I got to go to a movie. So we went.
We went last night and saw it.
Oh, we went and saw Solo Mio
2 nights ago. Yeah.
2 nights ago. It was so good.
Mm.
I can highly
We were
recommend
with
it.
Anna
It was fun. Yeah, it was just I went on a date with my wife and
and Anna.
And Anna.
took somebody else.
Well, it was
Okay,
really
well, it
hers
was
and my date. And
Yeah, I
you
know. I snuck along.
snuck in.
So
Did she sit in the middle of you guys?
No.
yeah. No, it was but I loved it. It was a cute little movie, and it just kind of like set the table for Valentine's Day. That'll be a lot of fun. I don't know.
very sweet.
Did you like it, Brent?
I liked it. I thought it was good. And, what Nancy, they were in Rome and Tuscany. And Nancy's dream vacation is to go to Tuscany and just plant herself there for weeks and do little day trips. But just, and so when they're like going to Tuscany, she's like, oh, look at that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And then I also had a chance to speak to the youth ministry last night. I haven't done that very often since I left youth ministry, and talked about some I introduced them to the ontological argument for the existence of God, and the cosmological argument, and the moral argument for the existence of God. Those junior hires had no idea what I was talking about.
Did they understand at the end?
No.
I think they understood the moral argument.
The moral, yeah. Some of them got the moral. Some of them got the cosmological. After you kind of explain it a little slower, it was a little much in the short amount of time that I had, but it was fun. It was still like,
I heard they had great conversations.
yeah, it sparked some really good conversations. Cool. Our youth ministry is learning that kind of stuff. So, how about you, babe?
What did I do? I bought a plant.
Oh,
wow.
wow.
This podcast has needed a woman's touch
I
this
know.
whole time.
No, and I because of the sermon. Well, I guess it wasn't because of the sermon. I watched a podcast that Kurt Cameron had put out. He recently came out as an annihilationist and
Or
kind of
conditional immortality is the
it
other way to talk
like
about it.
kind of made a stir on the internet. So he pulled all these theologians together and they discussed what is the traditional belief called? Just the traditional.
Oh,
belief?
it's called eternal conscious torment.
Conscious torment.
It's such a nice
Sounds
sounding-
great.
You know, so they're like, no, we got a better one. It's called conditional election.
Eternal
conditional
Eternal
immortality.
punishment. So they discussed it, and I thought that I appreciated the conversation because they were all very gracious, most of them. I think they were all gracious.
Yeah, no, they were all gracious.
And, it was just cool seeing people having different opinions talk about something on a
Yeah,
deep
you
level.
watch a lot of
sorry.
debates.
It was
so-
called Hellgate,
Yes.
and it's on Kurt Cameron's.
Yeah, I mean, you're
Not
like,
that you're gonna.
if
wanna
you're going to watch
but-
it as long, and you're not going to probably come out with any good conclusions at the end of it, but I do think what you're talking about was good, is that you saw them debate, and not debate, but like converse about a very serious issue, but not like throw each other under the bus or make disparaging arguments. And when you've watched a lot of like intense conversations over the years, because you've watched even political ones, you felt like this was like, man, if only people could see how Christians converse, you felt like it just really reveals when people really care about their topic, but they care about each other.
Yeah, I want to see more of that. I don't know. I can't think of like a debate that I like felt like they
Oh, you just mentioned that to me.
weren't
So.
charitable. But on Twitter, I feel like people are very uncharitable, and I don't think that it's a very good medium to have any kind of conversation.
Yeah.
And even Christians, I've noticed, they're just terrible to each other, and it's very sad. Anyways, so they were very kind to each other.
All right.
I
Very
appreciate it.
interesting.
And that's going to get into our topic today
Yeah.
because, we're in the middle of the series called The Source Code. With this last week was the final
That is the last one of the series.
sermon, yeah, and we're starting a new series.
It was the final one, and then we're going into countdown. So
Yeah.
that was the final one. This is countdown.
And countdown is like, I want to say end times. Is that right or no? Countdown to what? The return?
the
or-
the 5 days that changed the world. So
Okay,
we're
okay.
counting
He already
down.
did the end time.
Yeah, we already did in times.
I know. I thought we
The
did, but countdown
Survivalist
sounded
guide.
like this. Countdown! Here it comes. It's the end.
He's coming back.
Yeah.
Are you one of those people that hates that song too?
Final Countdown by
Yeah.
Europe?
Yeah.
I hate that song.
I know, but I keep referencing it just to see if it's going to get stuck in your head.
Yeah, no.
I actually don't know it.
Yeah. I did not like that band at all.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, this one was the final one. It was called, titled "God of the Resurrection." And really, you did talk a bit about heaven, but you also talked a bit about hell.
I talked more about heaven than I talked about hell, but okay. Yeah.
Well, Jesus talked more about hell than he did about heaven.
Not true, but close.
Well, that's what I hear, and I believe it because I saw it on the internet once. But you were talking about hell being God, the meeting out of God's justice. And so just really to start the conversation off of, how just is God? Is God just, and what would be the arguments for it?
So, like, what I was saying is that God, when we talk about God's justice, I brought up Abraham's statement to God is not the God of all humanity, or is not the judge of all humanity, to do what is right. And it's this idea that God wouldn't judge out of proportion to what is appropriate. So in the Old Testament, you'll read this concept of eye for eye and tooth for tooth. That gets like lambasted all over the place. Like that's some kind of like, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. Like how eye for eye? No, that was a limiter, right? If you lost an eye, the most you could extract from a person.
It's not like you had to do that.
Right. It was not have to. It was, this is as far as you can go. If you lost an eye, there's an eye. And so you take an eye. If you lost a tooth, you take a tooth. It's that kind of like, you don't go beyond. And this is the idea of justice. Justice is not overdone. It shouldn't give more where you don't deserve it. So it seems God knows exactly the right amount of punishment that fits the crime. That's the way we would kind of put it in our parlance, right? So God is just. He's not arbitrary, which means that for one person, he's okay with it, and he's like the grandpa's like, I'm going to punish that kid because I don't like him, but that kid, woohoo, he's cute, and there's this God in that way. It says that he gives no, what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't prejudice the situation. He gets this idea where favor. It's not favor as much as
Wait, no.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that it's this term basically where he doesn't look on some people as greater than others. He doesn't give some people a position and so they can get away with it. So he is
Isn't that like the concept of blind justice?
Yes, yeah. And that's the beauty of what he is doing in the judgment is he is not going to kind of side with a person in a way that he shouldn't, and he's not going to limit it. God, in that case, is not going to show favoritism, is the word I'm looking for. He's got no favorites when it comes to judgment. Now, it doesn't mean he can't grant mercy if he wants to, right? He is a merciful God. When we talk about his name is the Lord, merciful is his first term, or compassionate. But that's in light of his justice. And so, yeah, God is definitely just. And I think it's an important concept, like you were talking about earlier. What about that is, in your mind, so important in the conversation?
I think that when you think through all of the pain and suffering and all the evil in the world, the only thing that can bring any comfort in my mind is believing in a just God. Because then you know that everything that's been done that's unjust will be righted.
Right.
And so you can, and there's times where I don't feel that lightly. Like it's not like, oh yeah, well I believe in a just God, so I'm okay that this terrible murder just happened. It's a weighty thing to me when I think about the justice of God. It's like a big deal. Like, do I really believe God is just? And it helps me to, if I do trust him, it helps me to be able to deal with the things in front of me like that happen in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this. So God is just, and we can relax and give it to God because we know he will justly take care of it, right? We don't have to seek justice ourselves. God will seek justice rightly.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I still think we should seek justice.
No, I mean, yeah, but I mean, it's not in our hands, It's not.
No, ultimate justice is not in our hands, right. But it is in the hand. It has been given according to, the book of Romans, chapter, I think it's 13, that it's been given to the authorities, the governing authorities on earth, to exact justice. Their job is to do some kind of justice. Right. And so I would say that, yeah, if you've had injustice, you should seek to rectify that if you have to take it to the courts. I mean, that is something you have to do. But we're supposed to judge amongst each other. Right?
But what I'm talking about is like, if somebody wrongs you, you're to forgive them, right? And again, I'm not talking legal issues. I'm talking you forgive them and know that God will deal with it justly, especially somebody that you can't reconcile with because they passed away or they just won't have a relationship with you. And you just go, okay, I can let go of this. God's going to deal with this. I can forgive and move forward. Or even if something horrible happened, somebody killed somebody in your family by accident or not, the courts found them not guilty, and they got
away
off
with it or whatever.
Okay, God will deal with this, right?
Or like Hitler, who committed suicide and never stood for any of his crimes, right? That's in some people's minds, he got away with it all because now he's done. He's not around anymore. But that's if you didn't believe in God and justice, right? So where were we headed?
So now the conundrum with that, right, is the idea that if somebody killed one of your children, they went to court and the judge stood there and said, I am feeling really merciful today. So I am going to waive this and say that, you can't be tried or, it's not an appeal, but what do you do when you let somebody off, pardon you and let you walk free, right? There's no
judges don't have pardoning power, but okay. I get it.
But whatever that is,
I'm going to be lenient.
He makes a decision and gives you leniency, that you think is totally unjust, right? Because here's my thing, and I've said this before, is I feel as though, and I know God does it, so I'm not like arguing against God, but to mete out perfect and full justice, then there's no room for mercy. And if you give mercy, number one, then you're not meting out the full justice. If you but if you give all justice, there's no room for mercy. God does both perfectly. But now I forgot where I was going.
So no, I get what you're saying, because it feels like if Jesus is just forgiving us, and then like if God's like, hey, you're forgiven, you're not, it feels like there's an injustice.
So you get to heaven, the guy that killed your kid, is in heaven, and you're thinking, okay, was God really just there? And I mean, I know that I'm there, so I get it that, I don't, we always want justice for other people, not ourselves. But it's like when you get there, how complicated is that going to be to go,
I mean, you're getting into issues why there is belief in purgatory in some cases, and like in the Catholic Church, that's how they answer that question. The Roman Catholics would say, well, that person would go to purgatory. They would work through their sins longer than somebody else, and so you would see some sense of justice. But then you're like, well, then why did Jesus die? Well, he opened the door for him to go to purgatory and then eventually get into heaven. I would actually argue that there is a moment in the Bema seat of Christ. We looked at this fact that Christians don't just. I think we all get this idea that we get to heaven and all done, all done, forgiven, and it's like, no. I actually think there is going to be some comeuppance. There's going to be rewards lost. There's going to be some people who make it in, as 1 Corinthians says, by the smell of smoke. Like, I think if you're killed somebody and you come to Christ in the last minute of your life, yeah, you're going to be there, but you're coming in with the smell of smoke. You're not got any rewards. You're not going to have like there is levels of kind of glory, and there's levels of kind of things in heaven that there's in the new earth. And I do also think that if a person truly gave their life to Christ, they would have revealed that even before. Like, they would come to you and they would be like, hey, I know what I did was evil. There would be some kind of reconciliation. And I do think that there is like, well, that doesn't heal the fact you took my child from me and you destroyed our family or whatever. But seeing that person's remorse, seeing that person willing to completely repent and to break down, actually, I do believe softens and enables someone to forgive. Then God will bring about the rest of the justice in the sense of like, he knows what to pay a person who's been harmed. Like, don't think that there's not remediation in the justice either. That when I've had harm done by somebody else, that God's not going to make it right, even when the evil's done wrong to me. That's part of his justice. So I think there's a reconciliation process that goes on. I think that there is a dealing of all the issues.
I loved that image when you were talking about that in your in the sermon.
Yeah.
Just getting an image of like being with the Lord and like him, because you know me, like reconciliation is like my top priority, and like the idea that we would all be reconciled truly, you know, with God. I don't know that that's going to happen.
Oh,
but
it
I
has to happen.
hope
We're
that
not
it
just going to
happens
go into
because I loved
eternity.
it. It's beautiful. Like what a beautiful picture of what God does in our life.
I think it would be a fraud if we think that you can just walk into eternity
without like making it right.
Yeah, without there being a reconciliation. We're just not going to talk about that anymore. That's like the worst part of Christianity.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, it makes me angry that Christians think that's what you do when you forgive. You just go, yeah, I forgave that. That's one that's not healthy. That doesn't fix anything. That doesn't actually bring reconciliation. That is not what forgiveness is. That is not what reconciliation is. And so there are some people who can't be reconciled until the sin has been shed out of the person. Like they're abusers, but they love Jesus and they're broken and they realize it and they're like, I'm not healthy for you to be around. And in eternity, they finally are, because all that's cleaned up. That is a beautiful picture that I think we do an injustice by thinking that you just go to heaven and everything's forgiven and that's like, wow, that doesn't give any hope to anybody who's ever been really, really harmed by other people, right? And it doesn't help us in the church who have had major disagreements and harmed one another, whether we meant to or not. So I do think there will be these moments of reconciliation because Jesus will reveal all the background, all the stuff. It'll be all there on the table, and everybody involved will be a part of that.
Well, and I think one of the things that you said in the sermon was you kind of flippantly said, oh, you know, as God is revealing it to all of us and we reconcile, you know, when you said, oh, I didn't realize you were going through that. So like we're able to see each other's perspective in a way that we can't on earth. And it almost made me cry, actually, when you said that, because I was like, that's really powerful.
I actually think that's what a lot of people want in the empathy conversation. They're trying to get to that moment, but the problem is empathy can be abused on earth. It can be sin gets involved. There's no utopia, not even with empathy, because you can't have all the information, but one who can and can judge it rightly and can guide us like the best counselor ever, right? He can make it right. Where maybe we can't make it right now, but we will make it right then. That gives me hope for a lot of different things in my life. That gives me a lot of hope. So I do think that's a portion of justice. And I also want to point out that it's not like God's just saying, I forgive you. He's saying, I will forgive everyone. Everybody gets mercy. He's Oprah. You get mercy, and you get mercy, and you get mercy, and you get mercy, and you, right? I mean, he's not sitting there only choosing you get mercy, but that's a little bit why I get a little frustrated with some of the Calvinist way of talking.
It's the heart posture, right?
Right.
And I think, so I don't remember the exact situation, but there was a tragic shooting, and it was in Texas, and it was a female cop, and she went in to another person's. She thought that she was in hers. I think she said she thought she was in her apartment, and she shot another man. And then this is a tragic trial, and all, but his family, I think it was his brother, during the trial actually went up on the stand and forgave her and read the most beautiful letter and just bawling. But he knew she was sorry, I think, and yet I think ultimately the reason why he was able to have that position was his love for God and desiring her to know God. Anyways, it was really powerful. And I was thinking about it like when I don't know, that impact of like, I guess because I wonder if she wasn't remorseful at all, if he would have been able to have that same position.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he seemed like an amazing person, so maybe he would have been able to.
Like the way God deals with us, right? When we have a contrite heart and we confess our sins and we agree with him, he's willing to work with us and forgive us of our sins. And if we have a stubborn and unrepentant heart, then Okay, I'm going to solidify that in you.
Let you stay yourself.
And you're going to drive yourself away from my presence.
There's actually some interesting arguments out there that that argue that the judgment never gets finished. And this is speculation, but it's like the idea is that when you come before the judge and your full self is revealed, like you do not want to be in the presence of God. You don't like him. You don't like he's judging you. Your full heart and your rebellious heart comes out. And so now you're standing before God and he's showing you and judges, I believe God, even in the judgment, wants to give mercy to those he is going to see end up in hell. And I believe that he would love to give you a little less punishment. And maybe there are going to be people like that, because not everybody. But there is this tendency in humanity that once somebody tries to judge you, you don't think it's right. You don't have any right to judge me, blah, blah, blah. Even if it's God, they're going to be belligerent. Well, you don't give mercy to someone who's belligerent.
Right.
And then the argument goes, in fact, hell may be, unlike an annihilation situation, you may never get to the annihilation.
That really quick?
So annihilation viewpoint or conditional immortality is the viewpoint that after the judgment, God gives you a death sentence. And therefore, because you come resurrected back to life, you stand before the judgment, and God will judge you guilty, and then he will execute you. You will go through whatever form of execution, and when you die that time, your soul is gone and you cease to exist. So you die, officially, like the final kind of death. That's their argument. Now, there's another aspect to that, but what if you never get to the sentence? Because everyone's held in contempt. Because if you're belligerent in a courtroom,
because they're rebelling,
everyone continues to rebel in the courtroom. You never get to judgment. You only go through the contempt phase. And it's like, I'm going to hold you in contempt. You do that again. Who are you to hold me in contempt? Put him in contempt. And here's the weird thing about justice. Judges can hold you in contempt until you stop being in contempt. And some have argued that hell is not...
When the whole gospel is that until our heart is switched, where we recognize that we've done wrong and we're contrite, then...
Yeah, it's an interesting thought.
That's interesting.
That's been one of those like, that's an odd kind of situation. So, I mean, so the judgment's one of those tough places because you're talking about a totally different thing. I'll give another example that helps me in judgment, and that is like, I think people have a hard time believing like, oh, if my uncle was there, or my daughter was there, or somebody, I wouldn't be able to really handle that. Like I would be like, God, no, give them mercy until you saw them for who they were before God. And if they're cursing and yelling at God and they're cussing out the one that you love, you're going to be like, no, God, give them justice. Like, this is ridiculous. How can they treat you like this? You're our God. You loved us. You saved us. There will be a completely different calculus going on in our heads.
And I would even say, as the bystander, you don't even have to root for it, right? I mean, like, if one of our children shot up a school and they got life in prison, we wouldn't be going to the court going, yeah, send them to jail for life, But we would understand this is absolutely what they deserve, and it breaks my heart, It breaks my heart to see you, and I believe that it breaks God's heart, to pronounce that judgment because he did everything he could so that this wouldn't happen.
But again, I think that what's weird in what you're saying is you still love that. So you love that child in more than you even love the judge in that scenario still. But here we love the judge and the king who is being insulted way more than I love my kid. Way more than I love my spouse.
I don't agree with the fact that I love my kid more than I love the judge when I am brokenhearted that they did something to the point that I agree with the sentence, but it still breaks my heart. As a parent, when you have to punish your kids, you're not joyfully, it's breaking your heart to punish them and to see them in emotional pain, right? But part of it is like, justice has to be served, and
Yeah. Okay. So there's a nuance.
I remember my dad coming in one time when he had to spank me, which kind of shatters the whole "I'm perfect" motif.
You
Darn
were
it.
spanked once?
Yeah, way more than once.
I'm growing my hair back.
But I remember my dad came into my bedroom one time, and I was young. I was probably 10 years old or, whatever, and he was going to whip me with the belt, and I might have been a little younger. And I remember he sat on my bed, and he had a tear, and he said, I want you to know that this hurts me more than it's going to hurt you. And I'm sitting there going, no way it's going to hurt me. And if it hurts you that bad, then don't do it.
Why are you doing this?
Yeah, I want to spare you, Dad, But I remember him saying that to me, and that always stuck with me that, yeah, I've got to do this. Mm. You knew what the consequences were, and it breaks my heart to do this. But he did do it with more enthusiasm than I wanted.
Mm. Yeah, I think there's a nuance there. It's like when your child is so rebellious against you, and it's so horrible. Yes, you love them. Yes, you don't like it, but there is an overabundance of like, no, you're leaving my house. Mm. No, you're not treating your mother like that ever again. I love my wife more than I love my kids. Now, that may be saying something.
I don't know that it's more. It's different.
It's different, but again, there is a devotion.
Because even our love for God is different than the love that we have for one another.
Right, but if your child is insulting your spouse and being belligerent to your spouse, if you don't have a right love for your spouse, you're not going to step up. Of course,
you're not going to step up. But I mean, even if my child was... this occurs for me when my children aren't kind to one another. Yeah. It's very painful to me.
No.
It makes, I intervene almost immediately.
I think the reason I'm trying to tack away from that is because I think that is the natural assumption that we're going to have this emotional longing for our family member who's being judged. I think that's the base I'm starting from. I'm saying that your emotions will not be so overwhelming that you cannot go oh my gosh, you're talking to my God. You're talking to your creator. You are talking to the one who this already hurt him more than it's going to hurt you kind of person.
And I would say I did have that exact conversation with my dad before he gave his life to the Lord. Because I was having those conversations with him about faith and everything else.
I think that was the conversation that we went through this together. And that's when I was like, oh, this.
Yeah. And I just remember telling him, Dad, I love you, and if you continue rejecting Christ, you're going to go to hell and pay for your sins. And I know this, as much as I love you, on that day, I will be in agreement with God that you deserve this. Just because everything will be open and you will see sin for what it really is. And I know I will go, he absolutely deserves this, and I will be in God's corner for that. But it will break my heart that it's happening,
How did he respond to that?
Somberly.
He took him into his room and said, I'm going to have to spank you with the belt.
Son, this is going to hurt you a lot more than it hurts me. But yeah, that's, and so kind of talking about this justice aspect, one of the positions, and you brought it up, is the annihilation position. And what do you think of that from a justice standpoint, right? Because here's the thought, and this is something I've always thought of, is the idea that, the punishment or justice meted out meets the crime, right? Basically, if you stole, you could look at in a courtroom and this guy is sentenced to, 3 months in county jail, and then the next guy, he's going to get 5 years in prison, and the next guy's going to get life without knowing anything about the facts. The crimes, were significantly increased, right? And so when it comes to sin, and David's words, Lord God, it is against you and you alone that I have sinned, So basically we think sin sometimes is just lateral, but it's not. You're sinning against an eternal being, and therefore the punishment has to be eternal, right? I mean, I've always heard that, and I've always thought that made total sense to me. So the idea that annihilation, it would be a position, kind of eliminates that fact that your judgment and punishment for your sins is not eternal. You're in there for a time, and then you disappear. You just wiped out your existence.
Yeah, they would
forever.
I think the way that I heard them argue this was because the punishment is final, it is eternal. So you just don't exist for eternity. You're done. And so that I then to them
They
that's
put a
when,
really big emphasis on the fact that not existing as a human being is a big deal.
yeah.
And so that was part of the punishment, is the not existence.
See,
Like,
that-
because, yeah,
I don't
taking
get that. I don't
away.
get that part, right? That's punishment. Because if I just didn't exist,
You
then I
wouldn't
don't
know.
even exist. There's no consciousness there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't sit there and go, "Oh, I wish I was a human," you know. And so to me, I feel like if in my life, right, if I believed in annihilation, except for you've got that temporary punishment part, if
Yeah,
I
you
believed,
weigh
yeah,
it,
some do,
right?
yeah.
if I believed in
You're like-
annihilation, to me, I wouldn't live any differently necessarily than I would if I was an atheist, because
Right.
at some point,
Yeah.
I just don't exist anymore.
I mean, it's a
and
very
there's no
similar
consequence.
end, right? Like the atheism believe that we
Yeah.
cease to exist.
Why
and-
would I govern
Mm-hmm.
myself from pleasures on this earth if I don't have the,
Yeah.
the true consequences forever and ever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you could say, well, with a nihilist, you are being punished for a time.
Yeah.
But on here on earth, I'm being punished for a time by not giving in to my desires and, everything else. The thing that constrains me
Yeah.
is my love for God. And
It was actually one of the arguments that I used when I taught 8th grade logic, and we would discuss like Hitler versus Mother Teresa, and like it's like,
yeah, she was not nearly as evil. Just
Not
to
nearly.
clear that. Yeah.
but just like I made them really think through, like, okay, it's basically like God has to exist, right? Like otherwise, you're basically saying that nothing we do on earth matters. Like it literally has no meaning,
Right.
it has no implications.
So Hitler murders millions
he-
and millions and millions
and
of
they all
people.
just cease to exist, and they all have the same outcome in life.
Oh no, they get some little bit of punishment and then it's over.
But
Yeah,
but Hitler
then they-
didn't,
yeah,
right? Well, I mean,
yeah.
he killed himself, but other than that, like, what punishment did he just
Right,
receive on
exactly.
earth? So we actually used to talk about that in terms of like believing existence of God, and so that's kind of what you're saying, is that it's like a similar.
Now, some would argue
result.
that then the justice, it's hard because they would argue the justice is the length of which you get punished, maybe, but how quickly or soon you get, executed for your sins, because the wages of sin is death. But again, I think that gets a little bit into what I felt like that annihilationism doesn't explain death very well. It just kind of thinks of it in this wooden, like, and you don't exist, or you don't have physical life. And I'm like, I know a lot of people who are alive, but they feel dead. Like their relationships are dead, and they're just like, this relationship is dead. They don't have any love, any connection there, or they internally feel dead. They're just like, I don't have any emotions. It's like the depression. It's I find, and that is far worse. In fact, those people want to be annihilated. They don't want existence anymore. And so I have a hard time with it being just. I have a hard time with it being a real, like a true punishment in that way.
To me, it sounds like purgatory, but at the end of it, you disappear rather than go to heaven.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like it's a
Or hell.
purgatory light, or no, not light, I guess.
Heavy.
but- yeah.
It's the worst. It's the bad side of purgatory.
Yeah.
You're just falling down the hill, not going
Right,
up it.
right.
So
Yeah.
And there's some scriptures that I struggle with, like how, like when you talked about your dad, you're going to go to hell, you deserve it. I think some people out there are probably like, bang, like, whoa, that's horrible. You send your dad to like a fiery hell to be tortured by demons, blah, blah. No. One of the interesting developments in the conversation about hell has been, and we've always taught this in the church, but it's always been ignored for some reason, outside of Dante's Inferno, where we have levels of hell, right? And even in that's where we get the tortures and all these kinds of things. But there are actually gradations of punishment. Like not everybody's gonna be punished the same as Hitler. Like the entry ticket to hell is a rebellion against God. God gave you the entry ticket to heaven. We're all now going to hell because we didn't want it. We were sinning, and that's our wage is death. And now we're going in a world away from God. We're not with God. We're going to go away from His presence. Well, I think there's a question on that, but we'll get to that. In the meantime, like not everybody is going to be punished at the same level. In fact, I'll just read the scripture of it. It says, "But I tell you, it will be more bearable on the day of judgment for Tyre and Sidon than for you, Chorazin." That's some pretty interesting language. I tell you, it will be more bearable on the day of judgment for Tyre and Sidon. These were non-Jewish places. In fact, enemies of the Jews. And so you'll be brought down to Hades. Capernaum, will you be exalted to heaven? No, you'll be brought down to Hades. For the mighty works done in you have been done in Sodom. It would have remained to this day. But I tell you that it will be more tolerable on the day of judgment for the land of Sodom than for you. Why? Because knowledge, like I said, the more knowledge you have, the more culpable you are. Right. And so there is levels of judgment. There is severity of judgment. Not everybody's going to get the belt, Right. So,
and I always thought of the one, the one passage. I don't know it offhand, but I think it's in Matthew. But it was talking about sin and judgment, and then he goes, "But woe to you who causes one of these little ones to stumble." So why would it be like, okay, here's the judgment, but woe to the person that does this? If there wasn't like a heightened warning, and why would there be a heightened warning if everybody's going to get the same thing, But woe to you, you're going to get just as much as the other guy.
Yeah.
So
in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I totally have always bought into the rewards in heaven, and I think we got a question that'll talk about that, but also the depravity of hell, injustice. But when it comes to the annihilation position, do you think that Genesis 6, I think it's 6 and 7, has nihilistic tone to it in that sense?
Annihilationist.
Annihilationist.
Nihilists are like, they just don't care. They would love to be. They already think they don't exist. So,
okay. Then, because the idea that, once you die, you're going to suffer some punishment, and then you're just going to disappear and not exist, right? You'll be wiped off and erased. And so Genesis 6 talks about, the Lord was sorry that he had made man, and this is like going into the Noah story. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man, who I created, from the face of the land. And here God expressed regret over humanity's wickedness, indicating a change in his intended actions due to the state of human behavior. So it almost looks like he's looking at mankind and the evil that exists there, and just says, all right, I'm an annihilationist. I'm going to just erase you right now and start over. Do you feel like it has a tone of that in it, or?
No, I think that what we're reading there is literally he's just going to bring a judgment on the waters. It's the conversation of judgment in the sense that he's going to bring everybody to death. He's going to bring everybody that's in rebellion to a death. And so there is this moment of, in fact, it doesn't really look like anybody kind of survives in the wrath of God on earth and Revelation, all that kind of stuff. But I think the more difficult ones are more along the lines of like, do not fear him who can kill the body, but fear him who can kill or destroy both body and soul in hell. That's a little harder one for people. It's like, how does he destroy a soul? What's that look like? Or there's some language like that would lean more towards that annihilationist concepts. There's some Old Testament ones that look that way, but I think in the end, whatever destroy means, I have a tendency to think in the ancient world mentality that something that was destroyed is something that cannot be fixed. So when a wineskin is destroyed, it's not like it's annihilated. It's literally unfixable. You can't go back and fix it. And so when a life is destroyed, this gets into some viewpoints of hell that is not just, eternal conscious torment, tormenting, but more like there is this degradation of the human soul that you become less and less and less like the image of God. It gets more and more twisted and twisted and twisted. So you're almost this horror, this monstrosity instead of a human anymore. And that's kind of, you almost like lose, maybe you're conscious, but you kind of lose the aspect of your humanity that makes you truly human. This kind of, as we see, trauma destroys the human psyche. It takes you into very dark places of the soul, fragmentations and all these things. And I do think that, unfortunately, you're looking at the results of what it looks like to walk further and further away from God in the midst of traumas and destructions without healing or help. And so, I don't think that's a pretty picture. I think it's a horrifying picture. I don't think hell is one of these fun things to talk about, even though we are. It's it quickly does not become a conversation that's enjoyable in any stretch of the imagination when you start thinking about. That's why I focus on the judgment so much in my mind. I don't want to think about the results. There's just so dark and heavy and awful emotionally and just psychologically. They're just overwhelming. To think of a life away from the living God. That's I hold to a separationist viewpoint of hell, which is leads to that question somebody asked. I think Felicia asked. Do you want to ask that one?
Yeah, I'll ask. We got 3 questions, I think, if we got time to get to them. This one's from Felicia, and she sent it in during the service, which is great. Woo, woo. Thanks for that little note on the program. So Felicia says, thanks for the message. Very thought-provoking. Can you elaborate further on God being in hell, since he's everywhere, even though hell is separation from God? So basically, elaborate on God being in hell, even though it's separation from God. Not sure I was comprehending what you were saying during that part of the message. Second is, will all the animals be in the new earth? No predator-prey dynamic then? Will we eat meat? Will we have deathless meat that God creates? Ha ha. Thanks for your time.
I'll answer this second one really quick. Will all the animals be in the new earth? I think so. I don't know necessarily if that means they will have a different diet. I don't know if that means that if death is erased for humanity, which we were never intended to die, but that doesn't mean that animals won't. But yet then there'd be mourning and crying and horrible things there. So somehow in the new earth, there's going to be something that is that the world doesn't need to kill, at least sentience. Like there seems to be no care about fish or, like bacterias or things like that. That's not like a consideration as God's like that. That's not, you shouldn't kill that. It's like, we're talking about like animals with breath, that kind of stuff. Because even Jesus in his resurrection ate fish. That's kind of odd. So,
I was listening to somebody talking about that, and one of the things that he made about Jesus eating fish was the idea that there was this thought that it was just going to be this big spiritual thing, and they were showing that no, it was a resurrected physical body, and he ate, and so if you were just this spirit that existed, and so I thought that was pretty insightful.
So why not eat bread though?
Yeah. Oh.
Like, why are you eating a fish, a killed thing? Like the resurrected Jesus eating a dead thing. It's like, it's kind of interesting. Maybe he's just swallowing up death. See,
that's the thing. I the issue I have with vegans, right?
Maybe he didn't swallow it.
The issue I have with vegans,
just
that
spit
must
it out.
be. Yeah. The issue I have with vegans is they're like, you don't eat animals because you're killing something that's living. You know what? When you harvest a plant, you are killing a living thing too. Plants have as much right to live as a cow. That's what I think. It's hypocrisy.
You're going to starve to death. So will there be? I think God has the capacity to create the dynamics he wants, but he glories in his predator-prey dynamics. We struggle because we impart human.
Because of Bambi.
Yeah, we impart human attributes to animals. Beatrix Potter, Bambi. There's been these stories that we've created where we give, like your dog, I'm sorry, doesn't necessarily love you.
He does.
No, I don't think he does. I don't think our dog does.
I think he does.
I think he's just happy we feed him. Like,
no,
you can train him.
Pascal loves it.
I think
You
dogs
can
are
train
capable of love. I think they have a soul.
Oh, they have a kind of soul. Yeah, absolutely.
And their soul is loving.
But they don't love you. They will love anybody that feeds them. And
They love some people more.
I will say this. My mom and dad always had these little lap dogs, right? And for some reason, a couple of them just were attached to my dad. They wanted to sit on his lap. They just cuddled up to my dad all the time. My mom was the one that fed him. My mom was the one, So it wasn't just like, oh, she's the one that feeds me.
No, but that's alpha nature. That's like, who's the head of the pack? There's.
Okay, my mom was the head of the pack. No,
I'm just saying that there's. Anyway, there is a serious problem in biology with called anthropomorphisms, and we have to be careful that we don't know what they're feeling. We don't know why they're doing what they do. We're not dogs. We're not cats. We're not. Now, that doesn't mean that they need to die and all that kind of stuff.
We can kind of know.
Maybe. I mean,
when they yelp, we know that they're in pain.
Right. And when the donkey gets a voice, he goes like, "Hey, what are you doing? Driving me like you are. You a punk?" So anyway, it's just an interesting thing, because what is going on with the predator-prey dynamic? I don't know. There's no really real way to know. Will we eat meat? Jesus ate meat in the resurrection.
I hope so.
I think printed meat will be all over the place, and it'll be fine.
Meat?
Yeah, they don't print meat nowadays.
No.
Really,
you're going to eat?
I'll try it.
Will there be deathless meat? Will there be vegan meat in heaven?
Everything's tofu.
Everything's tofu.
But the answer would
Infinity
be,
and beyond.
the answer is that
Deathless
God
meat.
has the capacity to create food and without the need for death. I mean, that's really kind of how that works. So if he feeds the animals what they need to eat,
it's hard.
he's very capable.
I understand what you're saying, but it's hard for me to imagine wanting to eat that.
I get it. It's just, I don't think about it. If it tastes like meat, sweet. Now, the second one is about hell. And this is a little bit more kind of odd one that we're trying to explain. Because in separation viewpoint, if you're separated from God, we don't mean that you're separated from God in such a way that you cease to exist. You are contingent. So God keeps us existing. He can, if he wants, make us not exist. I don't believe that he does that because we're made in his image. I don't think God will destroy his own image in the sense of like annihilate his own image. I think he honors the image even when the image is broken. Otherwise, why would he have kept us in his image? Why don't he just create new images and start over? And he kind of did in Jesus and redeems the images that we are, but he doesn't just destroy his image. He doesn't want his image destroyed. We're not allowed to murder it. We're not allowed to defame his image. Like there's so many things. And then we go, well, God's going to annihilate his own image. I don't know if that's right. So when we talk about separation from God, we mean that you are away from God's presence. Like his Holy Spirit isn't there. You don't get to talk to Jesus, the Father. You'll never see his face. He, in a sense, is like the sun is for us. We are powered by the sun in this world. Like all the plants, all the things. The S-U-N. And it gives the radiation and stuff runs our planet. That's just how it works. If the sun went out, the planet dies. Everything dies. The sun is necessary in its energy to run the planet. So with that knowledge, like it's not like the sun is purposely doing it. It's just that's its passive mode. Now, sometimes it burps out fire at us and it can hurt us or whatever. God is a person, and so he has a passive ability to just keep it existing. And that's what we mean. He's present because he's omnipresent. He's there, but he's not, in the sense, attentive. He's not, if he is attentive, he's bringing his justice. That would be, so in some ways we think of him as present in justice, but not present in grace, mercy, love, peace, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. All that is in eternity with people who are alive in living an eternal life, a quality of living in the kingdom of God. So that's kind of that background. And this way, we think of it this way, that God is backing up, just as he's present in us in a different way than he's not in a non-Christian. So in hell, the presence they experience now by his grace, that's backed off. In Romans, it says this, as humanity ignores God, he says, therefore, God gave them up in the lust of their hearts to impurity. He goes on again, he says, for this reason, he gave them up to dishonorable passions. And then he goes on, since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. There's a sense that each time he backs up, and each time he backs up, it gets worse. And in hell, he's just backed all the way out. He's like, you don't want a part of me? I'll back all the way out of the picture.
And it's less of like him putting on a punishment. It's more of like their own, who they are is their punishment. I'm not saying that there's not a punishment, but like...
Again, justice, I don't know how he wants to meet that
as
out.
he backs off, when he allows us to be, like, give us over to our own sinful desires, it truly is a hellish existence.
I hate who I am when I'm in my worst. I don't like it. I like who I am. I mean, if you've ever struggled with rage or you've ever struggled with any form of sin that really captures you, and you wake up from it in a sense, like literally, we wake up from it. You're like, what was I doing? What was I thinking? And like, it just captures you because your flesh takes you down and you fell for the test. And like, boom, you're done. It's just, ugh. To imagine you never get out of that, it's just, that's miserable. It's miserable. So that's the idea of that concept.
And then the other question by Jacob, and he was talking, if eternity is a renewed physical world and not just a spiritual heaven, how should that change the way Christians view work, creativity, and culture right now?
Right now. So, first
in
of all,
this life, how should our views change knowing that
we flip, right? Let's get out of hell. Let's go back. Let's go into the new earth there. So the new earth and the new heavens is resurrected so that it's reconstituted better than it is now. It's some people have said as it goes through its own judgment and fire, all that was not worthy of being kept in eternity is gone. You can think of all kinds of things in our culture that just ain't going to be there because they're just burned up. Bye-bye to all the evils and garbage and social media posts. Bye. No, just kidding. But what is good will remain. And so in our world then, I think that this causes Christians to strive currently to do good in their work. That will bring reward. That you should work hard. You should work well. You should work like it's meaningful. Because it is.
We were made to work.
Right.
That's a good thing.
God is a worker. We're workers. I love how David Bahnsen in his book, this is one of the things I agreed in that book and I really liked. He's like, we wrongly define work
You
as...
said that book.
Oh, sorry. The book is Full-Time. Full-Time, sorry.
It's a good
time by who?
David Bahnsen.
David Bahnsen.
And he argues like, we define work wrongly. He says we seem to define work as that which you have to do until you don't have to do it anymore. It's like work until you don't have to work anymore. That's the meaning of work. Is like
we work to get vacation.
Yeah, we work to vacate. We work to retire and never do work again. And it's like I've seen people who retire like that, and it doesn't work out well. Seems to be people who retire and keep some kind of work going. They
probably not at the same degree as when you're young, but yeah.
But man, they live better. They're happier. They don't. It's fascinating. So I do think currently, if we know that there's a coming world, then you're going to carry your skills with you. You're going to carry the values that you brought with you. You may be capable of really being further along in your art process than somebody else, or your manufacturing process. So that how does that work with creativity? I think that it should call us to think about creativity differently. Like what's going to sell and what's going to be creative now is not necessarily what's going to be creative then. The reformers thought like this. If you look at the Renaissance paintings from the South, and Francis Schaeffer points this out, in his the pictures were all about like lavish, ugly nudities and different things, and we love the body, blah. But if you go to the reformers up north in Germany, other places, they got into painting domestic scenes like the horse and the cow and bowls of fruit. I'm like, that seems so uninteresting to paint a bowl of fruit. But they would do this and they would play with the light because what they were trying to do is they were trying to say even the most mundane things are glorious. And so they were trying to elevate the mundanity to beauty. And I think in heaven, creativity is going to be even the most mundane things. When we focus on it, we will capture its beauty and we'll wonder at the glory that's within it. And so I think there's some creativity to capture there. I think there's some music to write there. I think there's some paintings and drawings to do there. We do fixate a little too much on the dark. We're getting a master class in evil. And we write stories that almost sometimes glorify the evil nowadays instead of the victory over the evil, or try to understand the bad guy.
Where he was coming from and why he did what he did.
Yeah, and it's really not that bad if you knew his perspective, that kind of stuff.
Could you imagine if we were in heaven trying to come up with a good crime drama. Just
Well, and I've gotten into that. Like, I've thought about this being like, I like writing stories. I'm like, but would that even be interesting to us anymore?
Yeah.
Like, maybe a puzzle story might be interesting, but a crime drama is like, will we just be so turned in a different way that what's not thrilling to us now, that seems so boring and stupid, like a guy going from glory to glory to glory, we'd be like, that's so dumb to us. And
who's the bad guy? Nobody. Everybody's good.
But look how they're working together and doing this amazing thing.
Wow.
It's so boring. It's like, that's how we feel now. But what if our psyche was switched to where we revel in the good and the beautiful, and we're like, oh my gosh, look at what they were able to do. And instead of feeling these jealousies, we celebrate the victory that the other team was able to overcome. Like, we worked so hard and you worked so hard. Dude, what did you do? Teach us what you did. And so instead of teams getting mad at each other, it's like everything's this grand journey of exploration, development, and improvement. And that's a way creativity and culture would shift. That there's creativity, that there's culture is clear. Revelation 21 says, by its light, the light of the city, the nations walk. The kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. And that's the implication of culture. They're going to bring it into the city, and they're going to bring it in, and there's going to be no night there. It's going to be this beautiful, constant creativity and wonder of work. So I think one other thing that reminding us that we don't have to do everything now. Like, we're in this culture is like, you better make it to your full capacity. You better, become your greatest you. Like, how often do we hear that kind of stuff? That's not possible. You're made to be eternal. And so there are things you will not accomplish now. And that's okay. You will get to engage those things in the right way later. So I think that is especially happy for people who maybe they have a child who has Down syndrome. Maybe they have a family member who's got autism. And they're like, I see the wonder in this person. I can't wait until all the barriers in their physicality is removed so they can be fully who they are inside. And sometimes they're more fully who they are.
They're freer.
They're freer in some cases than others. But sometimes we see that the body restricts. And so I kind of have a tendency to say we're all that way, actually. All of us are disabled in some manner. And so all of us are going to be set free from our inhibitions, from these things that hold us back to be truly who God made us to be. And that is going to be so interesting in the creativity and things.
Now, the one thing on this question here that so like we all know work is a blessing. Work wasn't part of the curse because part of it was, go tend the garden and, subdue everything and all that stuff. So work was a part of it. And so when you think about going to heaven, it's like, okay, it's not a work-free environment, but do you think it's a commerce-free environment, right? Because like when I think of heaven, I think of the idea that you've got eternity and you could just like, hey, Greg, man, I've always wanted to explore this. Let's go. And you could just go on this journey, and just do what you want to do and explore God's beauty and everything else. And you're not thinking, I got to get back to work and, earn a few bucks. You're plucking oranges and apples on the way to where you're going. Maybe not apples. Ooh, we don't want to fall again. But you're eating on the way there. You're, harvesting stuff, and that could be the work and just digging into the things that your creative portion too. But you're not like tied down to a schedule of I got to work 9 to 5. I got to earn some money and pay for everything. It's kind of like everything is open to you. How do you view that? 'Cause I think commerce is the curse,
No, I actually don't think commerce is necessarily the curse. I don't think it'll work like it works here. There's going to be a measurement of some kind because we can't do everything for everybody all the time. And so it's a way of honoring one another with your money. It's not actually taking from someone. You're honoring them by saying, I worked hard in this.
Commerce isn't the problem. It's the sin, right?
It's the sin that's the problem. I don't think you need the capitalist market framework of the free market framework in eternity, because the free market framework is designed to limit over self-interest. There will be self-interest in eternity. Like the scriptures are not against self-interest. It says, don't look out to only your own interests, but also the interests of others. There's going to be something in the zone of a commerce. I don't think the seven days of work, 1 day off is going to go away. But I think you get a little bit more of a picture of like, there's no toil. And so the work is beneficent. It's beautiful. It's fruitful. It's wonderful. It's enjoyable. You like it. You're tending the garden. You whistle while you work, Anyway, so and then I think there will be these times like, hey, God declares a Jubilee. And yeah, we go on a year-long adventure, 2-year-long adventure, or 7-year-long vacation off to check things out. Or I do think there's some kind of rhythm there, but work will be a major part.
7-year adventure, and a day is like 1,000 years. So
Right.
wow, that's a long time.
7,000.
Just don't step into heaven. Just don't step into the spiritual side of heaven. Come back to earth. You're like, darn! I just spent 1 day up there. But so there is some kind of something going on there. I think that's the wonder of what the reconstruction is going to look like under Jesus. He knows how to set that, and he will as the king.
Yeah. And then the final one we'll get to is Anna, and she said, "Why would God tell us there are rewards in heaven ahead of time? And now that we know that, how do we do good without turning it into trying to earn something? How do we keep our hearts in the right place?"
My first thought is I don't actually think it's wrong to want to earn something in heaven. Like, I think there's a difference between earning your salvation and earning a reward from
Right.
God. It's like my first thought. But
Yeah. And I mean, I think in marriage too, right? I mean, there are rewards in heaven, or not rewards in heaven, rewards in a marriage, right? That you earn, right? Because if you treat your spouse rightly, if you look after them properly, then you're going to get the reward of a beautiful relationship, a healthy relationship, and a closer relationship, right? And I can't just go, well, I'm only doing this for selfish mode so that I can have a happy relationship.
Right.
But that's part of the thing. No, I do want to please you. I do want to care for you properly.
and I want you to please me and care for me.
And part of that is I will benefit from that. But if my only, and you use maybe you use the example, if you're only doing it out of duty to earn something, and that's the only thing, like you always made that thing of, if I gave Theressa a bouquet of flowers, and she's like, "Oh, what's this for?" Because I'm supposed to,
Right.
Then you're not going to get that. So if you're just doing things for the reward, I mean, a lot of times in relationships too, the husband is very unattentive to his wife, and then when he wants to fool around, all of a sudden he's nice, he brings her own flowers, and that's the whole purpose, right? And then if he doesn't get it, now I'm mad at you, and it's like, I don't think that's what it's like when you're trying to, work for rewards,
There's a desire to
because part of
please
that is
God.
to please, right? Not to just be pleased.
It births out of the love, not out of the duty. And I think that's the first thing we ought to remember is that if you really want to read a treatise on this, read Desiring God by John Piper, because that's his whole point. He's like saying, look, Kant was wrong. You don't do good just to do good as the duty. He's like, that just kills it. And nobody does it that way. I'll be quite honest. A lot of people, you do everything for a reward. In fact, I'll get into that a little bit this week. The question is, what is the reward you're looking for? So I walk in and I go, here's my flowers. I did it because, I had to. Well, one, you're dumb. But two, it's
Where's
like,
my reward?
yeah, it's like the reward I'm looking for is to alleviate my feeling of
There's your
obligation,
reward.
right? But there is a reward in me of going like, well, I did it. Now I act like I deserve it. That's a different problem. And that how do you make sure your heart is in the right place? Well, do you love Jesus? Do you want to do these things out of an extravagant love for him? Do you want to be like running after him? It's like, yeah, I want everything you have for me. I would love when my kids know that I want to reward them for doing something and they're after it, kind of delights me. I'm happy. Now, and if they're like, but if they're ingrates about it, where they're just like, well, you said I would do this, and so I'm doing it. And they're out there doing it, I'd be like, well, you know, been out of shape about this.
Or
I'm
when
gonna
they
give
do
you
it
a pizza
and then they
party.
come up to us and say, okay, now
Give it to me.
Give me what you told me. And
That's
it's
a
kind of
wage.
yucky. You're like, oh.
And here's the thing. Why is it called a reward and not a wage? Because the wage is what you earn. A reward is what is given to you freely. And I want to do good things. And truly good things won't receive a wage. They'll receive a reward. And why do I say that? Because if I'm going to do a truly good thing, I'm not going to get any kind of feedback here. I'm doing it for God. So I'm not going to necessarily, what does Jesus say is like, those of you who pray on the street corners and you do all these things, you've already got your reward. But those of you who go do it alone where nobody can see you, your Father sees what you do in secret, he will reward you. And so this is about doing it for the Lord, not doing it for the glory of the world. You will be repaid. You in some ways. There will be recompense, as the Bible says, but the rewards are coming because you did something that was truly good without any intention of ever receiving anything for it.
So
and God goes, I'll reward you for that.
So we earn rewards, and our wages are death. So when we work hard for, and we earn. Well, no, that didn't make sense. It makes sense in my head, but
no, you got it. Like you earn death.
You earn death,
but you're
given
rewards because, and those rewards are coming from the gift of your response to the gift of God. You're like, God, you gave me all this. I just love you. I can't believe you would do this for me. And he's like, I love giving you things. Dude, you did that good thing for that person? Here, I just think that's amazing. Oh, you gave that? Oh, here. I think that's what's going on. And so, I think we should be motivated that I want to do good things because I want to honor God. And if he rewards me, that's awesome. I want to do it I want to do things that God would want to reward. I think that's a good motivation. I don't think it's a bad one.
And I think, also like how humiliating would it be to enter heaven without reward, right? And when I was a baby Christian, when I first gave my life to the Lord, and young teenager struggling with stuff, and I would read that passage about entering heaven with the smell of smoke, like you were so close to going to hell, you entered heaven with the smell of smoke on you.
Everything burned up.
Yeah, and I part of my attitude then too is like, well, at least he got to heaven, at least he got to heaven, and it was like. That is such a callous attitude, right? Because you get there, and it's like if you ever showed up at a birthday party and everybody's handing gifts, and you're like, I didn't bring anything, you feel humiliated. How much more humiliated would you feel if show up in heaven and see Christ and understand what he did for us with all the scars and everything, and go on,
and not have anything
I have
for him.
nothing to give back to you, I didn't earn and I didn't care enough, to receive your rewards and show you my gratitude.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to remember is that God's not expecting us to throw our rewards back at him. Mm-hmm. I think we always talk about like, you give me crowns and I'm throwing them at your feet. Mm-hmm. I think God's gonna be like, I gave you the crown.
Yeah, wear it.
Why are you throwing it back? I appreciate the love, but you can't earn my salvation. You can't earn what I gave you.
Yeah.
Enjoy what I gave you. That's what I want you to do. So I'm kind of like
one
of those
picture though. There people are laying their crowns down, and I think that just comes out of humility. Like I don't deserve.
I don't deserve it.
I don't deserve this.
But that's from Revelation, and that's not what the symbolism means. It's been misused.
Well, that will do for another day.
Yeah. So
I'm going to write that question down. What do the crowns in Revelation mean?
Because who are the elders, and what does that have to do with anything?
I think too, the things that really impacted me from your sermon, we talked about, God being just and not overdoing his punishments and like being so merciful, and his kindness, leading to us to repentance, and just thinking like, okay, as we give our life to the Lord and we accept his forgiveness, he's such a good God, right? And so like when you really understand who God is and when you really get to know him, you really do fall in love with who he is. Like he is lovable. And that sounds so weird, but like, and so you desire to please him and you desire to like do good for him on his behalf. And so like one of the things for me that I've tried to really meditate on and think through is like the idea that God loves his image. And so anytime like, and this is just something that I've had to wrestle with in my own like person of, we are his image, right? People. So if I am denigrating or I'm like maybe being hateful towards people, I have to remind myself like the God that I love loves his image. And so like, I'm not with him right now. My heart isn't aligned with him if I don't love his image, if I don't love his people.
Yeah. Totally.
Anyways, so it causes you to worship him.
Well, I think that's all we've got time for today. And so we want to thank you guys for listening and being a part of our conversation. And you can be more a part of our conversation by either using that QR code during the sermon if you're at Olive Branch, or you can send us an email at rabbittrail@obcc.church. That's rabbittrail@obcc.church. And before we go, we want to let you guys know there's some cool things happening. We started a new series called Countdown. That's going to be coming out. This lands on Monday, and so that will have just begun last Sunday. We've got some pretty some neat stuff coming up in the church, and so we'd love for you guys to look over it, take a look at the different things that are happening out there. And we're excited that you joined with us. We want to thank Jacob. He's our producer, and his aide Tommy, who helped set this up today. And finally, our editor Dale. Man, you're knocking it out, man. Some cool stuff you're doing. Thank you so much. And we are glad that you joined us. Join us next time here at the Rabbit Trail. God bless you guys. We will see you next